Didn't you read the sign outside the office? We don't hire people like you. How dare you enter the office?
They mocked her for her skin color, not knowing she's the CEO of the very office they work in. She stays calm, watches every move, and waits for the right moment. Stay till the end. When the truth drops, the whole room changes. If you enjoyed this story of justice served, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss one of our tales. We have so many more stories like this to share with you. Now, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Comment your city name below. I reached the city before the sun. The sky was a flat gray, calm like a hell breath. The taxi left me on a narrow street where the air smelled of wet stone and coffee. A line of lights ran along the top of the glass office tower, small pale dots that made the building look like a spine. The sign above the turnstiles read our name in a clean white font. I stood across the street for a long minute and watched it. It did not look like a place that could hide a wrong. But most of the worst things I've seen wore clean shirts and kept their shoes shined. I did not carry a briefcase or anything that would say who I was. The coat I wore was the kind of coat that blends in. Dark, simple, cheap on purpose. I had my hair tied back, low and neat. No watch, no ring, no name. The city was still, and a glass showed the empty rooms inside. This was our new regional office, in a market we had chased for a year. In 2 days, we were going to hold a ribbon cutting. The board would fly in. Cameras would be there. It would be a happy show, but I had not been able to shake the feeling I had when I read the weekly summaries from this place. All the numbers lined up almost too well, like a song with no wrong notes. I kept thinking I heard a sound under the music. That is why I came alone, without telling the local director, without telling my PR lead, without telling the chair. I wanted to hear the room with my own ears. The lobby desk had a brass bell that made a dull ring when I pressed it. The guard looked up from an old magazine. He had tired eyes and a blue pen that had leaked onto his fingers. He smiled at me without knowing who I was. It felt good to meet a face that had no script in it. "Morning," he said. "You early for someone?" "Job interview," I said. "Earliest I have ever seen." He made a sound like a soft laugh. They like that here. Early in, late out. Could be they expect both with no thanks. His tag said Alvarez, but the first name was rubbed off from where. He gave me a form and a sticker to wear as a guest. The elevator was slow, and the light inside hummed. I watched the floor numbers glow one by one and felt the hum in my bones. When the doors opened, the office lights were already on. That was the first sign. Not one desk lamp, not one side lamp, but all. The air was too cold for an empty room. The white noise felt planned, loud enough to hide a whisper, but not loud enough to hide a laugh. I walked past clean desks lined in perfect rows. There were photos on the walls, all of them the same tone. Group shots of teams in gray suits. All the faces pale, all of them with the same kind of grin. On a corkboard near the kitchen, a printed calendar had the words Heritage Day in thin letters. The little cartoon faces on the page were all the same. A woman at the front desk looked at me, then at my sticker, then at my shoes. Her eyes went from my hair to my coat to my face, slow, with a tight, thin smile. There's a kind of smile that looks kind on the mouth, but not in the eyes at all. She had that. "You for vendor delivery?" she asked. "For admin," I said. "I have an interview." "Name?" "Lena," I said, using the name from the recruiter. "Lena Brown." She typed with nails that clicked. "Right," she said. "You can wait over there." She pointed to a chair near a plant that was fake, too green, and too still. I sat and put my hands on my knees. People started to come in, one by one, then in clusters. Men with close-cut hair and white shirts. Women in pale blouses, all of them in the same straight-cut pants. They looked at me in quick glances and looked away fast. One man came in and stood by the desk with his coffee, watched me without shame for a full 3 seconds, then said low and fast, "Clients on 12 today, also QBR 11, so keep the lobby clean." The front desk woman nodded, eyes still on her screen. "No witties. She won't be long." They spoke as if I was a piece of furniture. In a way, I was glad for it. People show more truth when they think they are safe. The hiring manager came out to greet me 20 minutes late. He had a suit that fit and hair that was too perfect. His name was Victor Hale, regional director. I knew him from video calls where he made a show of charm. In person, he smiled with his teeth and not with his jaw. A thin wire of a man, all string and gloss. He did not offer me his hand. He gestured down the hall. "This will be quick," he said, but in a way that meant this is a waste. He led me to room 7. The hall made our steps loud. Room 7 was glass on 2 sides, with a film over the glass, pale and cloudy. Inside, the air had that faint mix of dry marker and carpet. He took a clipboard and flipped the pages like he was tired of the task. "Tell me about yourself," he said. I did. In simple words, I said I had done admin work for 5 years. I said I could handle front desk, calendars, and vendor calls. I told him I had worked with a hard boss and learned what voice to use when a client is angry. My voice was steady. He picked at the seam of the chair with his nail. "And are you comfortable with the people who come through here?" he asked. "We are a client-facing office. We keep a certain standard." "What do you mean by standard?" I asked. He smiled that tight smile. "We keep it clean," he said. "Polished. Our brand is trust, and trust looks a certain way." "And how do I look?" I said. His eyes met mine, then slid away. "You would not be in a client space," he said. "Back office, perhaps. Or not a fit at all. We are careful." He asked 2 more blank questions and stood. "Thanks for coming in," he said, and was already at the door. He did not ask me anything real, but he had given me more in his blur than he knew. I waited a beat after he left, then looked at the whiteboard behind the door. There was a grid of names and check marks and short words. Clean, soft, fit. Each name had a line with numbers. I took in the columns fast and felt my stomach twist. One column was labeled CS, and under it were numbers from 1 to 5. Another had the word face. One had a tick mark next to a series of letters. Under CS, every name with a dark dot next to it had a low number. It looked like a code. It was a code. The door opened, and a young man stepped in by mistake, saw me, and froze. He had kind eyes. He glanced at the board, then at me, then at my sticker. He held the door and said, low, fast, "Do you need water?" There was something else in his voice, a warning. "I'm fine," I said. I left the room and sat again by the fake plant. The front desk woman watched me like I might steal the pen from the counter. As the lobby filled, I saw the way people walked past me, the way their mouths bent. A man in a blue tie came close and said in a voice that was meant to be quiet, but was not, "We don't do, that kind of hire here." The woman at the desk nodded with a small shake of her head. The blue tie man kept walking. I looked at the photo wall again. All those frames with pale faces. A poster in the hall said, "We see you. We hear you. We welcome all." Under it, a small glass box held a pamphlet about equal opportunity law. The edges of the paper had never been touched. I stood and made my way to the kitchen. A woman in a silver watch stood by the microwave, tapping her phone. When she saw me, she froze, then put her phone away like she had been caught, then smiled too wide. "How is your interview going?" she asked. "It ended," I said. He was quick. "Oh," she said. "Sometimes fit is not a match. Our clients are used to what they see in this city. It's not like other places. You know how it is." I did not reply. She shifted, then took her cup and left. When the room was quiet, I took out my own phone and took 3 photos of the board in room 7 through the glass. The film blurred it, but the words were still clear enough to read. I put the phone away and sat, and thought of the first job I had years ago, where a man in a gray suit called me Sunshine and asked me if I could do something about my hair, since it made the place look creative. I had smiled then and kept my job and learned. My face felt cold now. My hands were steady. A man in a red lanyard came to collect my guest sticker. "We are all set," he said, not looking at me. He took it like he was taking trash from a table. I stood, thanked him, and walked back to the elevator. The hum met me again. My reflection in the metal doors looked like someone else, a woman with a plain coat and a calm stare. The elevator took me down, slow and soft, and I thought of the ribbon and the smiles and the camera. I thought of all the names inside room 7 with little marks next to them, marks that spoke in code but told the truth. The lobby was warmer than the floor above. Alvarez looked up and gave me that same small smile. "How did it go?" he asked. "They were very clear," I said. "Thank you for the badge." "You new to town?" he asked. "No," I said. but I came a long way to get here. He nodded. People come a long way for this building, he said. You see all kinds of faces out there, but not many of them make it past that white glass. Do you see who does make it past? I asked. I see a lot, he said. They once told me to send all deliveries through the back, even in the rain. Said the front had to look like money. I asked, whose money? They did not like that. He slid the sign-in book toward me and tapped a line. Someone had written a note there in a messy hand. Keep lobbies spotless. Keep certain types out of sight. The last words had been lined through with a light pen, like someone had tried to hide them, but did not. Push hard enough. Who wrote that? I asked. He looked at the cameras, then at me, then down at his hands. The director made a lot of notes, he said. But it's not only him. It's the air here. It gets in you. It makes you think wrong is normal. I'll be back tomorrow, I said. For what? He asked. To bring things into the open. He studied me for a breath. You talk like someone with a key, he said. I have one, I said and left. I went to a small cafe 2 blocks away that smelled of sugar and yeast. The window was fogged. I sat at a corner table and pulled out my second phone, the one my assistant uses to text me when I travel. I sent 2 messages, one to our global HR lead, one to our general counsel. I asked them to hold an hour on Friday morning with the board and the audit team and said we would be in conference north of the site. I told them to bring no balloons, no PR, no one whose job was to smile. And I asked our IT team to copy the email server at the new office at noon today and to pull the resume database to see notes in the last 6 months. I asked our facilities lead to send me a list of vendors who serve this location, with payments made. I wrote the words slow and clear. I did not add a reason. I did not want the reason in a place where someone might print it out and pass it around. When the messages were sent, I put the phone down and put my head in my hands and let the air come in and go out of my chest on its own, slow, until I felt steady again. That night I did not sleep much. The hotel room window looked out at the river, flat and gray, with a bridge like a long arm. The city felt like a place that was holding its breath. The kind of place that keeps its windows clean, but leaves the back stairs dusty. I kept seeing room 7 in my head. The grid on the whiteboard with the word clean underlined twice. I kept hearing the word standard in Victor's voice. I woke from short sleep with the taste of old fear in my mouth. The kind of fear that is not about one person, but about a kind of rule in the world that you do not see until it stands in your way and blocks the road. I went back at dawn, this time with a paper bag from a bakery, so that I would look like someone bringing something small and harmless. The guard waved me through with a nod he did not give others. On the ride up, a delivery man got in with a cart of bottles and looked at my face and then at the floor. When the doors opened, I moved like I had moved in a lot of places where people had tried to act as if I did not belong. Slow enough to not jar my own calm. Fast enough to not give anyone time to stop me. I walked down a side hall, past a door marked Supplies 6B. The door was locked. A line of tape ran along the floor in front of it, clear and thin. Only people who looked down would see it. I looked down, saw it, and kept walking. 2 offices later was a room with a cracked shade. Inside, a team of 3 was in a video call. On the screen, I saw our logo and a client's watermark in the corner. The man in the blue tie was speaking. We know the local taste, he said. We keep a tight front. People trust what looks like them. We do that. It works. That is why we are at 92% close in this region. I kept moving. The kitchen held one person, the young man from the day before. He stood with a mug in his hands and a small frown on his face like he had been thinking hard and forgot where he was. You came back, he said. I did, I said. You should be careful, he said. They think they can say anything here. They don't think anyone can touch them. They think it is how this city is. I need your help, I said. Do you have a name that you like to use when you want to tell the truth? He blinked. Ian, he said. Just Ian. Do you know what is in Supply 6B? I asked. He looked at the door in the hall, then back at me. He lowered his voice. Room 7 used to be the interview room, he said. Now they use 6B sometimes. They say it is for storage. It is not. Do they write things down? Everything, he said. They keep hard copies so they can forget to log the comments. Can you get me in? Ian's hand shook a little as he set his mug down. I have a key, he said. But if they see me, They won't, I said. Not if we do this now, while most people are still in the lobby. He looked at me in a new way then, like he was trying to see past the coat. He took a breath. Follow me, he said, and he walked like someone who has done a wrong thing in a right way many times, soft and sure. He slipped the key in the lock of 6B and turned it. The light inside was dim and yellow. The room smelled like dust and dry paper. A stack of banker's boxes stood in a neat line, labels in the same hand, sharp and small. There was a desk with a small shredder, the kind you buy at a drugstore. On the desk was a folder with a list that made my skin prickle. The list had names and the word final at the top. Next to each name were notes. Too urban, read one. Accent too heavy for clients, read another. Bandwidth flow. Culture mismatch. Fit for back house. Not a face for the front. I took photos one after another. Then I opened a box. Resumes that had been printed were inside, clipped together with yellow sticky notes on them. A sticky note on one said, sounds like she is black. Another said, looks like a diversity hire. Avoid for client spaces. The notes were not shy. They were proud, like someone had felt safe while writing them. Who sees this? I asked. HR here, Ian said. Victor, and the floor leads. They call it guard the gate. They say it is a standard for trust. The word trust has been used so much it does not mean anything anymore. Do you have a copy of the codes on the whiteboard? I asked. He reached into his pocket and took out a folded paper. I drew it, he said, and handed it to me. The code was simple. CS was client soften, a number from 1 to 5, for how much they thought a person would ease a client's mind. Face was a yes or no. Put this face in front or keep it out of view. BLK was written with lines through it, then the words bench list keeper next to it. It was a lie to cover the real meaning. We knew this trick. People who make rules like to make them look normal on paper. Why are you doing this? I asked. He looked at the boxes like they were bodies. My sister came in last month, he said. She is smart, top of her class. They told her to wait in the hall. They never called her back. I heard the way they talked about her. I did not have the voice then. I do now. Maybe because I saw her look when she came home. It was like they had opened a door and shut it in her face while she was still standing there. I put my hand on my chest and felt my heart beat. Do you want this to end? I asked. Yes, he said. Then be ready on Friday. I said. When I ask questions, you answer them. When I ask you what you saw, you tell the truth. Can you do that? He took a breath and nodded. I can. We left 6B and locked it again. On the way back to the kitchen, we passed a framed mission statement. Words like fairness and light and family. I have seen those words in lots of rooms. They always look nice on paper. The room was already full when I got to the kitchen. The woman with the silver watch looked over and whispered to another woman, and they both smiled. The smile did not reach the eyes. I poured water and found a seat by the window. Outside, the road had started to fill. A bus hissed. A man on a bike moved past and did not look up. I waited for the time to pass and thought of faces. Of the faces that were not on that wall. Of the faces of my mother and my aunties and a teacher who had told me to speak. I thought of the empty frames that waited in some room for the new photos we would hang. The rest of the day, I watched and listened. You can learn a lot if you sit still. I heard the way the team leads spoke to interns named Lucas and Claire and Ben with a soft tone that had patience in it, and the way they spoke to the cleaning crew with a tone that was clipped. I heard someone joke that darker colors show dust more in a burst of laughter that had a sharp edge. The laughter stopped when the elevator dinged and an older man in a navy suit walked in. He had the walk of a person who thought the room was made for him. Victor moved to his side like a tide moving to a rock. He smiled at the navy suit, a real smile this time, jaw and all. Mr. Richmond, Victor said, we have been so eager to show you the numbers. The name rang in my head. Richmond, a board member's oldest friend. The one who had pushed for Victor's hire in the first place. The one who had given this office its chance. The person who could confirm the pattern that had begun to form in my mind. Not just a culture of quiet hate. A culture built to keep certain eyes from seeing certain lines of a ledger. I watched them go into conference north. The glass turned cloudy as they closed the door. I moved down the hall and did not mean to look, but could not stop. The clouds on the glass did not cover the bottom edge. I saw two shoes step on a foot pedal under the table. A screen in the wall panel showed a menu. The cursor moved to a file folder named Golf. It opened to a sheet of numbers with a tab that read Northbridge Partners. A list of payments scrolled, all to the same vendor, all coded as community outreach, all in increments just under the amount that would trigger a second signature. I took a slow breath. Northbridge Partners had a post office box address in my head from 3 years ago, from a small story that was similar in a small way. I remembered the detail like a pebble in a shoe. It had been bare then, but the shape was the same. A shell, a drain. I stepped back as a man came out. He almost ran into me, then scowled like I had been in his way on purpose. He was young, with slick hair and a tie so tight it hid a scar on his neck. "Watch where you're going," he said, and moved past me. He did not know who he had spoken to. I watched him go to a desk and whisper to a woman who nodded too much. On the second morning, I felt the pattern of the place in my own breath. Offices take on a rhythm. The elevator dings at the same times. The kitchen fills at the same times. The jokes repeat. It can be easy to fall to the beat and forget what is wrong with the song. That is how rot lives the longest. People call it culture. The building had a smell like carpet and fear. When a person with darker skin came up to ask a question, people used a different tone. I heard it twice, then 10 times, then so many times it made a sharp sound in my brain like glass. The tone had soft words and hard edges. It said you can be near, but not in. It said you can be useful, but not seen. It said you can help, but not belong. The person who got that tone would nod and step back. Sometimes they would smile. That smile is a kind of guard, and guarding all day is work. At noon, I went downstairs and found Alvarez on break. We stood in the little open-air space behind the building where the smokers stand, and the wind makes a low sound like a crowd in another room. He took a drag and blew the smoke away. Not at me. "You still here?" he said. "I am," I said. "You look like someone set a plan down and is waiting for the ink to dry." "The ink is drying now," I said, "and there will be a meeting Friday. Things will come out." He listened with his head tilted, like the words had a sound he was trying to catch. "You sound like you don't just want a few people gone," he said. "You sound like you want to change the air." "I do," I said. "But first I want truth. I want to show what was said and done. Then I want to show what it cost. Then I want to teach a lesson that sticks when the lights go off and the cameras leave." He leaned against the wall. "I will be at my desk," he said. "Sometimes people forget I have ears. I don't. I hear a lot." Thursday night came heavy with a storm. Rain hit the glass so hard it sounded like static on an empty channel. I sat on the floor of the hotel room with papers spread out, the photos from room 7 and 6B, and the notes I had made. I drew lines between names and payments, lines between words and acts. I saw the shape of the thing. It had a face that was polite and a spine that was made of fear and greed. I called the general counsel, and we spoke in short lines like code. She would bring the audit team early. They would sit in a room next to North and wait. She would get the board on a video call at 9 sharp. I called our HR lead. She was quiet when I told her what I had found. Then she said, "Do you want to announce the change yourself?" And I said, "Yes, but I am not doing a show." "This is not a show. This is a course correction." "Do you want to make arrests?" she asked. "Not my job to arrest," I said. "My job is to lead. I will open the door. The ones who have to walk out will walk out." The morning of the meeting, I dressed in a simple dark suit that fit, but did not show that it fit. I wore no name tag. I put my hair up. I walked to the building as the sun rose and turned the rain left on the street into soft gold. People smiled at each other in the lobby the way people do when a big day is about to start. It is easy to smile before a reveal when you think the reveal is balloons and a knife cutting a ribbon. Alvarez looked at me and gave a small nod that meant more than a word. Upstairs, I found the front desk. The woman with the tight smile looked at me, then at my clothes, then at my face. "You can't be in here," she said. "We have a private event. The guests will come at 9. The lobby needs to look like money," I said. "Yes, I've heard." She blinked at the tone. People who think they know your place get shocked when you step out of the box they made for you in their head. Victor came out of his office, his eyes bright like glass in a light. He was in full charm now, talking to a young man with a camera, going over the spots where he wanted to stand. He saw me, and his eyes flicked, then fixed, then flicked again. He did not place me. He had met me twice this week, and still did not know who I was. It is wild how people can fail to see what they do not care to see. "Miss," he said, coming closer, with that smile like a seal on a letter. "If you're here for admin, we have filled that role. Kindly wait downstairs." "I'm here for the meeting," I said. "It is invite only," he said, with a hint of final. "I know," I said. "I sent the invites." He laughed like I was making a joke. We saw I was not. The laugh stopped in the middle like a cut line on a tape. "Who are you?" he asked. "You will know soon," I said. "Let me ask you before we go in. Do you think the clients want to see people who look like them?" "I do," he said without pause. "And they want to see people who carry the trust of this city. It is just how it is. I did not make it that way." "You did not make it that way," I repeated. "But you chose it. You wrote it down. You coded it. You taught it. You will answer for it." He opened his mouth, shut it, then turned and walked away faster than a walk but not yet a run, like a man who feels a fire behind a wall but is not ready to say fire. At 9, the room filled. The board's faces popped up on the screen like a row of small portraits. The audit team sat at the back, still, notebooks closed. The HR lead sat by the door with a small stack of tablets. Alvarez stood at the lobby, which we could see on a small monitor, folding and unfolding a piece of paper. The local teams filled the chairs with a buzz. It was a hum like the AC, steady and meant to soothe. I stood at the front of the room, still and quiet, and looked at their faces. The room went soft. The buzz fell. "Good morning," I said. "My name is Maya Cole. I am the chief executive officer of this company." The silence had a sound. It had weight. It moved through the room and sat in every empty part. The woman with the silver watch put her hand to her mouth. The man in the blue tie had color rise to his neck. Victor said, "We were not told." "Sit down," I said. My voice was quiet and cold. "You will get your turn. I will start." I told the story in the simplest way I could. I told them I had come to see the office the way a candidate sees it, the way a vendor sees it, the way a guard sees it. I showed them photos of the whiteboard in room 7 and the notes in 6B without the names of applicants. I put the codes on the big screen and let the silence after the words do some work. The board members shifted in their chairs as their images on the screen saw the words too. I had asked legal to send a sample list of people who had been marked not a fit with the notes attached, with the feedback they had been given. The difference was clear. What they told the candidates was not what they wrote down. I watched faces shift as the truth hit the room. Victor stood. "We have to maintain a standard for clients," he said. "Our numbers show it. It is not personal. Listen to yourself," I said. "We are not a club. We are not a private dining room. We are not a face rental. We are a service firm that sells skill and trust does not look like OneSkin. The problem here is not only taste. It is theft. Because every time you push a great person out of the room and say it is for standard, you steal from this company. You take money from our future. You push work to people who do not see the client from all sides. You make us small. And that was the point for some of you. Small rooms are easier to control. They keep secrets better." I walked to the screen and hit a key. A spreadsheet came up with the tab, Northbridge Partners. I did not look at Victor. I spoke to the room. "You have been paying a vendor that does not exist," I said. "Structured to avoid a second signature. Coded as outreach. Signed off by this office only. Crossed with client dinners and golf games with Mr. Richmond and Mr. Hale. These payments match dates on the whiteboard where the word clean was underlined. The same days you passed on candidates who were marked as not a fit. You built a fence. You kept people out who would have noticed the trash in the lot. Mr. Richmond's face on the screen went red, then pale, like a flare put out by wet. "We will have to look at those numbers," he said. "You will look while I'm here," I said, "and you will look hard." I turned to the door. "Ian," I said, "come in." He did. He stood at the front with me, his back straight, but his hands shaking. The woman with the silver watch looked down at her notes. The man with the blue tie leaned back like he wanted to slip into the chair behind him. Ian told the room what he had seen and what he had been asked to do. He told them about the words used in the small rooms where only some people sit. He told them about his sister. His voice broke once, then held. The board listened. The room had a tight, strange quiet. When he finished, I asked the HR lead to read the statements we had gathered from people the office had pushed away and from the guard. Alvarez walked up and stood in the door. He did not cross the line. He spoke from there. It mattered. He used few words. He said what the signs in the book looked like, what he had been asked to do, who had told him to send certain people to the back entrance. The weight of his truth landed in the corners. Victor started to talk fast. Words came like water from a broken pipe. Context, he said. Client realities, he said. Market, he said. This city, he said. I did not stop him for a minute. I let him put all the wrong words into the air where they could be seen. Then I clipped them one by one. You did not call this context when you chose faces to be seen, I said. You called it a rule. You did not call it market when you laughed by the front desk. You called it joke. You did not call it this city when you paid a shell. You called it outreach. You made a world in this building that has nothing to do with our values. And you were proud of it. You wrote it down. He sat. His face had a sheen of sweat. His perfect hair had one line out of place. I turned to the quietest woman in the room. She had kept her head down the whole time, a finance lead named Priya who had sent me 3 emails in the last 2 months about timing of payments here. I had read them at night and thought there was something to them. Now I asked her, when you flagged the payments, what were you told? That it was approved by the region, she said. That Mr. Richmond had vouched. That if I could not keep up, someone else could do my work. Who said that? She looked at Victor. He looked at his shoes. Then she looked at me. He did, she said. I asked the audit team to step into 6B with the keys and with HR. They did. We watched on a small screen as they pulled boxes and stacked them and counted. Each time the number went up, I felt the weight in my chest move. I called 3 names to come to the front. The front desk woman, the man with the blue tie, the slick-haired young man. I did not shame them. I told them to sit and listen. Then I did something that made the room breathe in and hold it. I played a set of audio from the lobby camera mic ours do not record all day. They record when the sign-in bell is pressed. It was legal. It was true. The sound of the bell came first, then the sound of voice. Mine, good. Then the voice of the blue tie man saying the words you don't do that kind of hire here. Then the laugh. Then Alvarez's voice, soft, asking someone to sign in. Then a tone as the front desk woman said the words, keep the lobby clean, with that mean edge that a person uses when they want to make another one feel small. The sound made some people look at the floor. I shut the audio off. The silence came like rain on a hot day, a soft hiss, a relief for some and a sting for others. I looked at the board. This is what is going to happen, I said. Mr. Hale, you're on administrative leave, effective now. Mr. Richmond, a formal review is being opened. This office is closed for the day. You will all leave your badges on your desks and go home. We will interview each of you over the next week. If you have done wrong, be ready to say it and to face the thing you did. If you have watched wrong and said nothing, this is your first hour to say something. We will make right what can be made right. We will repay those who lost wages because of a pattern. We will invite people back. We will stop saying we value light while we pull down the shades. And we will change the air in this place, not by a poster, but by how we hire and how we speak and how we stand in the hall when a new face comes in. A voice in the back said, what about our numbers? It was said with fear. The person who said it was thinking about bonuses and rent and a new car. Our numbers will be better when we stop lying to ourselves, I said, when we stop paying ghosts, when we put skill in front of a client and not a face. It might be harder for a month or 2, then it will be brighter. And our name will stand for something when someone says it out loud. I let the room sit. Then I did the small part of the plan that I had saved. I took a folded paper out of my pocket. It was not a legal form. It was a letter. I read it out loud. It was a letter to me from my mother when I started my first job in a city like this one, far from home. It said, whenever you walk into a room and you're the only one who looks like you, understand that you're not the one making history. The room is. Your presence is not the test. Their welcome is. If they fail it, hold your ground. Stand there long enough for the next person to see a path. I put the paper down and looked at the faces. Some were wet. Some were hard. Some were blank, the kind of blank that means a person is thinking hard for the first time in a long time. I told the staff they could go. A few came up to me as the room cleared. One was the front desk woman. She stood with her arms folded at first, then she let them drop. "I am sorry," she said. The words were quiet, but they were made of glass. "I copy what I see. I do what I'm told. That is not enough. I know that now. If you let me stay, I will learn. If you do not, I will learn anyway. Learning is not a thing you say," I said. "It is a thing you do. Go home for today. When we call you, tell the whole truth. If you hold back now, you will carry it. It will mark you." She nodded and left. The man in the blue tie tried to leave fast. The HR lead stopped him and asked for his badge. He gave it with a smooth hand, but his jaw was tight. The board stayed on the screen with their mics off, watching. When only a few people were left, including Ian, including Priya, including Alvarez by the door, I asked the board to unmute. "We failed," said the chair. "We hired the wrong person to run your region. We let a friend sign off on things that should have been checked by someone else. We did not ask enough questions when we saw numbers we liked. We will fix it with you." "Not with words," I said. "With action. With open books. With actual faces and frames that look like the world, not like a small table at a club at noon. We will not make a pledge. We will not put a sticker on a window. We will just do better, and people will notice. And we will keep the receipts." That afternoon, we moved from show to work. HR set up interviews. People who had not spoken in a year started to talk. The whiteboard in room 7 was erased and then photographed once more so that everyone could look at a blank space. The boxes in 6B were moved to legal. The man with the tight tie walked out the door with a blank face and a flat stare. Priya sat with the audit team and showed them the notes she had kept. She had kept them for months, even when she was told to delete. That is how you hold a line in a wave. You put your feet in. You put your notes in a drawer and keep them safe and wait for a day like this one. The meeting with the staff who had been hurt came 2 days later in a room with windows that looked at trees. I asked them what they wanted from us besides money. They said they wanted the job they were fit for. They wanted someone to say in public what had been done wrong. They wanted to work in a room where a joke like that did not land and stay. They wanted a place where they could bring their whole selves and leave at night with all of it still with them. I told them they would get offers. Some of them did not want to come back. I understood. A wound takes time. Trust takes time. I asked them if we could keep talking anyway. They said yes. They wanted to see if we meant it. We did. We hired 4, then 6, then 10, and not because they were symbols, but because they were good. We put them in front. Clients did not leave. In fact, some clients sat up. They said, "This feels different. It feels like air." I stood in the lobby one morning a month later with a cup of coffee and watched a young woman with dark skin and a bright yellow scarf walk in with a portfolio under her arm. The front desk woman, the same one from before, smiled in a real way and stood to greet her. The smile reached her eyes this time. She said, "Can I help you?" with a tone that had no edge at all. Alvarez looked up from his log and gave the young woman the kind of nod he had given me. A small one, a quiet one, but with a lot in it. Victor's office was empty. The nameplate was gone. The walls were bare. The glass was clear. Priya had moved into that office for a while as acting director while we found a new one, and the plant she put on the shelf was a real one, with leaves that sometimes dropped and had to be picked up and put in the bin. Urban plants do that. They live. They need things. They change. We change with them. Later, we made Ian a team lead, then a manager. He never forgot to note what mattered. He kept a copy of the code sheet in his drawer, and he would take it out sometimes and look at it and then put it away. Not to admire or to miss it, but to remember what to never do again. Mr. Richmond resigned from the board. The audit found his hand on 3 things that should not have had his hand on them. He made a speech. It was clean and short. He said he wanted to spend more time with family. It was a lie, but the truth was clear, and sometimes that is enough to move past a person without a fight. The shell vendor was closed. The money left was returned. The day of the ribbon cutting came, and it was simple. No velunach, no cameras. We cut a small ribbon inside the kitchen with only staff and 1 tip jar for the team that actually made the food. I stood there and felt the weight of the early mornings in my shoulders. I thought of the first meeting in room 7, of the whiteboard, of the way the office had felt too cold. It was warmer now. The AC was the same. The temperature had changed because the people had changed. That is what a room is. A room is made of walls and air and eyes and hands and the sound of a laugh that does not hurt. If the sound of a laugh made the hair on your arms lie flat instead of stand up, if you could hear the bell at the desk and not feel a sting, if the photos on the wall had faces that made the city feel seen, then we had done something worth the hours. There were still mistakes. There always are. One week a client made a face at a team that did not look like him. He asked for a change. We told him no. We lost the account. We gained 3 more. You can't plan that. But you can plan who you want to be when it happens. A year later, I came back to that city and stood across the street where I had stood the first day. The spine of lights was the same. The sign was the same. The guard desk had new paint. Alvarez had a new pen that had not leaked yet. The air still smelled like coffee and stone. I watched a group of new hires come in. They came in every shade, every hair type, every tone. Some held their bags close like a shield. Some walked like they had done this before. The front desk met each of them with a real welcome. Somewhere upstairs, in a room with windows that looked at a tree, a young person would sit in front of a whiteboard that now held a map of projects and no codes about faces. I walked in and stood in the lobby with no badge. Alvarez drew a breath like he was about to speak and then laughed. "You again," he said, with a different look each time. "Do I look like money today?" I asked. "You look like someone who made this place worth the walk," he said. I looked up at the row of frames on the wall. The new photos showed teams at work, teams of all kinds. It looked like a real city. It looked like a story that people might want to be part of. It looked like truth. Outside, a bus hissed, and the world moved the way it always does, with wheels and feet and breath. In my head, I could still hear the word standard in a voice I never wanted to hear again, and I could hear another voice, my mother's, say the line about rooms and welcome. I carried it with me like a letter in a pocket, worn at the edges, soft with the touch of a hand. This was the sweet part of the revenge. Not the look on Victor's face when he realized who I was. Not the quick exits or the box of things carried down the hall. The sweet part was the change that stayed when I left. The sweet part was the way the room looked a year later, and the voice at the desk, and the way a new hire with a bright scarf could stand with her feet planted and her eyes open and see no fence at all. The lesson was planted in the walls and in the way people spoke to each other when no one else watched. Sometimes I think about the little line of tape in front of the door to 6B. Someone had put it there to mark a boundary only they would see. It was a secret line. We pulled it up. We put the boxes in the light. We left that space empty. We made new rules and did not write them on a whiteboard. We wrote them in how we stood and how we hired and how we listened when the guard in the lobby said he saw something. That is how you change what the air carries. You let the truth sit where everyone can see it. You put your face in the frame and smile in a way that reaches the eyes. And when a person who once stood in that lobby and felt small walks back in years later, you're right there to look them in the eye and say, "This is yours too." People like to say business is numbers and plans and decks. It is also faces and doors and small rooms with yellow light. It is the way someone says your name. It is the slow turn of a head when you enter a lobby. It is a code on a whiteboard that looks like nothing until you put it under a bright light. If you're lucky and also stubborn, you can take a hand to those things and shape them. You can make a place where the laugh has no knife in it. You can make a place where a guard looks up and knows he will be heard. You can take a space that had a fence on a floor and scrape it away. You can do all of that and still sell work and still make money and still sleep at night. You can do all of that and teach a lesson that no one in that room will forget. There is one more thing. The first time I came into that building, no one saw me. They saw a coat, a color, a shape, an idea. They saw their rule. They did not see me. The last time I stood there, a young man in a hoodie came in to fix the network. He had deep brown skin and a wide, bright grin. He saw me and nodded in that way people do when they recognize something unspoken. "You new here?" he asked. "No," I said, "but it still feels new." "Looks good," he said and kept walking. He did not know who I was. He did not have to. He felt like he could be in that room without changing who he was at the door. That is all I wanted. That is all the work. The rest is noise. The rest is hum. The rest is the AC trying to hide a whisper it can't hide anymore. I stepped back into the light outside and watched the glass go from clear to cloudy as the sun shifted. The glass does not hide what is in the room when you know where to look. Not anymore. Not here. Not in this place where the frames on the wall tell a story that will outlive all of us. And I walked on, the way I always do, into the next room that needed air.